I'd like to call the meeting to order. The Board of Leavenworth County Commission. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start with a moment of silence. I'll start with the roll call. To my right, Commissioner Culverson.
Here.
Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Smith is here. Commissioner Simke.
Here.
Commissioner Stevens. Here. We're all present. We'll start with open up with public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak can come forward to the podium and state their name.
My name's Judy Etter, and I'm affected by the Millwood Bridge. We're having to go up through Potter, dodge potholes on the part of the highway that's not concrete. It's just a mess to try to get to town anymore.
Okay.
So, and there are people that farm on both sides of that bridge. We have to call them and tell them, you can't come the way you think you can come. You have to go north to the used car lot at Potter and then take that road and come around. Or go through Easton, which then you've got hills and traffic and all kinds of stuff. So the sooner you can get that bridge fixed, the better a lot of people are going to be. Better off we're going to be. I had one suggestion. A friend said what you ought to do is have somebody there as a toll keeper, and you let the Leavenworth County people use it for free, but you charge the Atchison County and the Jefferson County, because there are a lot of people from other counties that use that bridge also. So we're all having to find a different way.
Definitely.
And we're going to be talking about that later on in this meeting.
We know.
Okay.
That's
All
why
right.
we're here.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Joe Herring, District 2. Good morning, Commissioners. First off, I want to thank you guys for having these work sessions that we have to discuss some of the more heated topics and issues that we need to see what's happening. But my concern is the lack of minutes that come out of that, and they're very basic. You know, it just says this item was discussed. I wish that this board would consider some sort of recording of those meetings for the people who cannot attend, especially when we're talking about roads, planning and zoning issues, taxes, appraisals. Those are some hot voice recording, and if the people want that recording, they can come up and ask for the open records request. But not everybody can attend these meetings at 1 to 3 in the afternoon or 9 to 11 in the morning, like I can make my schedule available to do so. So hope you consider that request before this afternoon's work session and come to some sort of consensus on a way to get that information to the public.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else from the public? Then we'll close public comment and move on to administrative business. Mr. Lawfrey, we have some administrative business.
We do have a couple of things. First, in the last work session we had, we talked about a couple of resolutions, one on the makeup of Planning and Zoning Commission, and the other one on the elected officials and the pay plan. And we talked, originally we discussed that it would be 2 weeks before they came back, but 2 of the commissioners will be gone next week, so they won't be on next week's agenda. I just want to let you know they'll be on the following agenda so that all 5 commissioners are here when they're on. Just, that's an update on that. And then I'll pass it off to Mr. Spickelmeyer.
Good morning,
Morning.
Commissioners.
two things I wanted to, I'll start with some really good news. It's not actually on the agenda, but we received our annual KDHE inspection for the solid waste transfer station, and we had no noted deficiencies. So that is a testament to the hard work that the folks out at the transfer station do, and a testament to the superintendent for solid waste, Tammy Saldivar. She does a great job out at the transfer station. It's a fantastic facility that is a good service to the Leavenworth County residents and anybody that, take your trash to the transfer station and your recycling, because it's better there than in ditches or, other things. So I wanted to give a shout out to Tammy. And then real quick, I wanted to talk a little bit about the E58 bridge update. I know this is a high priority for the County Commission, and we want to move in the most expeditious manner possible. So we've done some research, and we reached out to the Design Build Institute and the Kansas City chapter, and we reached out to some other folks, and I even brought it up when I was down in Wichita at the National Engineers Conference last week. And a consensus among the folks that are doing this suggests that we look into something called construction management at risk as a means to deliver the project more rapidly than the traditional design bid build. It has some advantages in that there's a lot of things that can happen concurrently. For instance, your construction manager can issue individual smaller packets. They can begin demolition of the bridge while they're still working on the design. They can do property acquisition while they're still doing the demolition. There's a lot of ways in which the project can be phased to move more rapidly. We still have some regulatory items that we need to address, but they could be started sooner than later in a traditional thing. One thing that they do recommend is that we have a very solid guaranteed not to exceed price, and that's usually the cornerstone of a design of a construction management at risk, and that this is your price. What that does, though, is it does give more control to the design build team versus the owner, and in this case us, and that they're highly encouraged to move very rapidly, but because they take that risk, they have the reward to move forward, and their margins are going to be higher if they're able to deliver when they say they deliver. So that is the with any process, there's advantages and disadvantages. It will likely be a little more expensive, but it will likely be done faster. I know that time is of the essence on this project, so it would be my intention to proceed with solicitation for proposals from design build entities for this project, and probably take place over the next 2 to 3 weeks to get some proposals that we would then evaluate and then select the team that we thought was the best and most effective for what we're trying to do.
You said design build, but you mean construction management?
Oh, construction management at risk. Yep.
And what kind of time frame do you think we're looking at?
I think that we would like to see construction complete by the end of 2020.
Okay.
That would be our goal, is to have it finished by the end of next year.
Well, we had Tongi Road for a year.
That's true. At this point, yeah, you're right.
And then that's quite a bit of traffic.
It is, and we understand it's a significant inconvenience to those who are affected,
Yeah.
and it poses an even greater challenge in that it bridges Stranger Creek, which is a
floodplain.
yeah, those roads are more likely to close than most.
Now, on the regulatory part, do you get the permits, or does this, if you sign with this company, do they get all the permits?
It would be my intention to have the construction management firm
Right.
manage all of the regulatory issues.
Okay.
Essentially, we would give them a performance specification. We would tell them the hydrology criteria we want them to use. We would tell them the loading criteria that we want them to use. And we would ask them to develop a schedule as part of their proposal, as well as their guaranteed maximum as part of their proposal.
Now, have we identified funding? I mean, I know we'll bond for this if we have to, but do we have to have the bonding complete before we would award something like this?
Well, as long as, when we bring it forward, you have to make a commitment to fund it. As long as you do that, we'll be okay. So we may, when we get the numbers, we may come to you and ask, you will issue debt if need be. As long as we have that in place prior to awarding the bid, we'd be okay.
Okay. Mr. Culberson, this is your deal.
Yeah, I would like to see weekly reports starting today on the Millwood project, to keep this in the limelight and keep us focused. You know, we've shut down some other bridges in the county, but almost all those bridges was only a mile or two detour to get around it. Like the people in the room and the hundreds of phone calls that I've fielded on this, understand this is a 7 or 8 mile detour. It's a major thoroughfare road. It's not a residential or a side road. This is a major thoroughfare road. You know, and a lot of people don't understand when we say we want to complete it by the end of 2020, they're like, that's a long way off. That's 2 years. What a lot of people aren't understanding is that, you know, the first thing they'll say is all the other bridges only take about 4 or 6 months. Well, that's because we planned to replace those bridges. And behind the scenes, we were working on those bridges 2 years before they're complete, but people don't see that because we go out for bid. Starting at the 2-year period, we go out for bid, we secure the materials, we do all the pre-work. There's studies to be done, permitting. This one's going to take extra care because it's in the FEMA floodplain. They'll need to do feasibility studies, economic studies. There's all kinds of things that are behind the scenes that people don't see. So the problem with this one is it was an emergency. It shut down before we had a chance to get all those things in place. So we're seeing the closure of the bridge for a full 2 years because, you know, the inspections that we had, we pulled the last couple inspections and there was nothing to indicate this was going to fail on us. It was an extra bad winter, I think, is what mostly caused the failure. So yeah, when you tell people it's going to be 2 years, that's not any longer than any other bridge takes. It's just because it failed on us instead of us being able to plan for it. So, but I think, like I said, since this is a major through road, we need to focus and get it done as fast as possible. We looked at declaring an emergency procedure on it. Since there's not federal or state funds involved, that really would probably hamper us more than it would help. So we've looked at a lot of different angles on getting this thing done as fast as possible. And so I just want to keep us focused and keep it at the front of our road projects.
Typically, you're right, Commissioner. It's a 4 to 5 year process from the time you identify a bridge to be replaced. And it gives time for the property acquisition. I mean, all of these tasks are going to happen in a much quicker manner than normal. And a lot of times that does incur additional costs. So it's just the trade-off that you have to decide is what's worth it. But it's not uncommon at all for other municipalities and governments to go down a path similar in order to, you know, understand the critical nature of the roadway.
Mike,
Go ahead.
I was just curious how long you think it'll take for this new construction management, you know, at risk, either RFP process, or how quickly we might be able to review some of those estimates or bids alongside the more traditional replacement approach?
It would be my intention to try to have those packets submitted within 3 to 4 weeks so that we can make a decision probably within a month. We would like to get the firm on board as soon as possible so that they can start their process. Again, you know, we'll have a winter in between, but there's a lot of work on a bridge that can be done in a winter. Demolition, for example. You know, I think there's some challenges that we probably haven't identified yet, like property acquisition. That's always a tough part.
So, and anything you need from us, you know, make sure that we're not hampering the timeline whatsoever. Because, like I said, this is a major through road. So much so, this is the original Fort Riley Road from the wagon trail days. So,
Well, then we ought to get federal money.
that's right. We thought about that.
If you want to delay the project even
Yeah,
further, we
that's
can ask for
exactly
some
right.
federal money.
Maybe the fact that it is such an inconvenience and is so long might help to accelerate some of the easement acquisition and right-of-way.
I've always found that easement acquisition is a challenge, just because you're dealing with property owners that
Sure.
maybe, are not as affected as maybe someone that doesn't live next to the bridge.
But you'll hire somebody to acquire right away, correct?
Absolutely, and
Okay.
put it on a schedule in which we understand that as much as we're reluctant to, we will have to exercise, we need to be prepared to exercise the authority of eminent domain to acquire the property, knowing that it's a last resort, we understand that, but in this case, it's probably gonna have to be faster than we typically give everybody about 6 months to mull it over before we go down that thing, but that's more of a courtesy to our residents in this case, and maybe we're gonna get lucky because, maybe the people that operate the ground down there are not gonna be as.
I think they're all my cousins, so we should be okay.
I don't know if I would
May
have
be
said
good or
that just
bad.
yet.
No conflict there, is there?
Should be all right.
Yeah.
So when was it that you thought, with the expedited schedule, when did you think that this would be completed? Do you have a projected?
Again though, I think the construction management firm they're gonna put this as part of their proposal. That's one thing we will evaluate, is what schedule they think. I would like to see it completed by, the end of 2020. That would be.
The end of 2020.
That would be my estimate. But the firms and the folks that do this, they're better at knowing that. I mean, they've done some things that are very innovative, that can move things even faster. So I would like to see what they have to do. Again, this would be the first time we've gone down this road. Typically, it's a 4 to 5 year process, and we know what we're getting. In this case, we're going to be looking at a little bit different bridge structure, but one that can be erected faster. Very similar to and I have some preconceived notions that I need to make sure I divorce myself of, just because there might be another method out there for this than what I would think, like your typical pre-stressed concrete beam. But then when you have a construction management firm on board to do the work, they can also do things like get the beam design started immediately, so that the beams are being constructed in their factory to be brought out to the site while they're working on the demolition. There's a lot of steps that can happen concurrently that don't typically happen in your just typical design bid build.
So if, what's the, when do you foresee meeting with this organization and actually being able to report back to us an actual concrete date that they are saying that it'll be completed by?
Well, again, I'd like to solicit for proposals, and then we need to determine how we want to select the team. And then once that team has been selected, the Board of County Commissioners will have to approve the plan going forward. So again, I'd like to see that in about a month.
About a month.
Would be my guess.
So within 30 days, we ought to be able to tell people.
I am hesitant to use a hard, fast date, but yes, I would like to see that. So.
That's what people want, is a hard, fast date.
Our
Okay.
intention is to engage one of our on-call engineering firms to help us draft the documents that are needed to go through this process. And then as soon as we can get those done, we'll get them out. And then that's what Mr. Spiegelmeyer is saying, that we'll try to get those back to you within a month. Kind of depends on how fast we can get the engineering firm to get those documents prepared too. But that's our goal, and I think when you see these come in, you might see some firms that present a more expedited timeline at a higher cost, and that's what we'll have to evaluate. But we will move as quickly as possible.
And we even thought about putting up a billboard at the bridge or the road closed sign that kind of explained the process. You know how they'll do that sometimes? This is where we're at in the process, to let people know we're working on it. And because, like I said, this is a big inconvenience. It's a 10-minute detour if you use that route every day to go to work. We even looked at some temporary fixes. We thought about maybe just opening one lane back up, using stoplights on it, but the inspector said that probably wouldn't work because the damage would probably creep across that lane with added traffic.
There's,
So,
that's true. Without knowing what caused the original failure, and then doubling the traffic on one side of the bridge
Yeah.
could expedite any failure on that side, so we'd open it and then have to turn around and close it. Plus, we're hoping with this construction management at risk process, they'll start demolition sooner than later, so then you're talking about 2 months closing it back
Yeah.
up, so.
and we don't want to be dangerous, so.
Any more questions of Mr. Spickmore?
I just want to clarify, because with the 30 days, I think that you need to clarify is from the time that after you have sent out and received, because you're going to have to give time for your the vendors to provide us with, you have the deadline for providing their bids, and then from the time that you open the bids, I'm just saying, you need to have, the day they go out, they have 30 days, then they'll come back, and then you can make a decision as to how, right?
I think we can give them a little bit less than 30 days.
A little bit less than, but I'm just saying, but it's not going to be 30 days from today that you open up bids, right?
Right.
That's what I'm trying to make sure that based on what
There will be-
Commissioner Stephen was.
We will receive packets, and then we have to can figure out a way we're going to do a fair and open and transparent selection. So,
Right, so I'm just saying, it's not going to be 30 days from today that
we'll
the job
have
will be
a bid.
awarded, is what I was getting at. Correct, or not?
That's correct. And
Okay.
so when we
Just-
have, but once we've selected and put them under contract, their clock will start.
Right. Right.
So it is our intention to get this done as expeditiously as we can.
Any more questions of Mr. Spickmore? Then,
Did
you
you-
need, oh,
Judy, did you have any more questions, or did you kind of hear answers to what you're wanting to hear? Yep, if
Please.
you want to.
please.
I just wanted to say that one reason this bridge failed was because it's 60 years old. And there was a drop-off from the road to the bridge for years. We've lived out there for 20 years. And my husband says every time we went across the bridge, he said a prayer that it wouldn't fall through before we got across it. So it's not something that, the county, I don't know who's been inspecting it, but the county has been lax in inspecting that bridge because it has not been in good shape for years.
Yeah, we fixed it a couple times, I know, over the last 10 years.
Yeah, it just keeps coming apart.
And we were getting ready to replace it, but the last inspection told us we had, another 5 to 10 years to do it, but it was coming close.
Yeah.
And then this winter we had, I think, just did it in.
So that's,
We knew it was going to happen pretty quick. We just got caught.
You're
yeah,
right.
it's a real inconvenience, super big time, so,
Mhm.
thank you.
Thank you.
I have just a general question on our bridges in the county. You've got them on a schedule to be inspected and to be replaced, correct?
Yes, the schedule is dictated by the Federal Highway Administration, and so we report this to FHWA. We have it's called a biannual. Every 2 years, we do a bridge inspection. And then, but all that does is tell us the condition. So part of what we're discussing this afternoon is our capital improvement plan. And so we have about 150 bridges in Leavenworth County that we operate and maintain. And so if you figure, a 75-year lifespan on a bridge, you better be replacing 2 of them a year. If you figure a 50-year lifespan on a bridge, you should be expecting to replace about 3 every year. Bridges, typically, we'd like to see them last between 50 and 100 years. Some will even last longer. There's many, many, many factors that determine that. But, we have been very diligent. In 2009, the Federal Highway Administration revised their bridge inspection guidelines, and Leavenworth County was one of the first to, is looked at as a model on how we were actually doing it. So we do a very thorough job and a good job of doing that. But as with anything, these bridges will not last forever. And we just have to have a plan to build something the first day. The capital investment is such, but the operation and maintenance it's ongoing.
And what's the inspection schedule? Like, is the inspection coming from the county, or is that coming from the state, or how does that work?
It's a federally mandated every 2 years. It's every even year.
That
So-
they physically come out, inspect that bridge,
Yes.
A firm does, and then the state also sends people to follow up and does random inspections on some of these.
Yeah, they have a QA/QC process at the
Right.
state of Kansas. Again, Leavenworth County has been at the forefront of the bridge inspection. The state has looked at us as a model. We really,
In this bridge, we found that it was deficient, but how did that inspection come about? Was that a state inspector?
it's a periodic inspection. It's not the only bridge, Commissioner. There are a lot of bridges that, they're safe, but a lot of bridges are what they refer to as functionally obsolete.
But what I'm asking
You mean
is,
why it
this
closed,
was one of those 2-year inspections that when they went out
No.
to do this
No,
inspection?
no,
This
it
was a-
failed. It developed a big hole in it, is why we
Okay,
shut it
so
down.
that's
The last inspection we got said we had another 5 to 10 years.
All right,
It's
so when
like
it
it's-
developed the hole, they come out and inspect and say, well, those things gotta go.
Yeah, it
Right,
developed a
right.
big hole.
Unless you want to spend a
Right.
couple $100,000 on it to patch it up and then replace it.
So,
Yeah, it wasn't closed from an inspection. It closed because it got a big hole in it.
big hole, okay.
Then they came,
I'm-
inspected
I'm
it and said it was not good.
Getting up to speed on all these
No,
things, so-
absolutely.
And then
Happy
we
to
brought
answer
the
any
inspector.
questions.
Yeah, and then we brought the inspector out to see if we could just patch it.
Patch it.
And they
Right.
said, no, it needs replaced this time.
Mike, I assume like most inspections, there's really no liability taken on by the inspecting party. I mean, the fact that they said expect 5 to 10, winter or other variables aside, I'm curious, one, what liability do they have, if any? And then two, how do we make sure that, maybe that's the wrong third-party firm moving forward?
They all have to be certified by the state of Kansas that they are eligible and competent to make the bridge inspections under the federal process that requires that happen. So, again, their inspections are based upon the guidelines that are set forth, and they are much more thorough than some inspectors that are out there. We do not we want to make sure we've got a quality inspection project. So the firm that's been doing this has been doing this for over 10 years. We're certainly, we could revise or revisit who's doing our inspection services. This was an unforeseen circumstance.
Understood.
And they found other items in their routine inspections that we were lucky enough to catch early enough. I believe K-18 on Logan or whatever that is going north-south by the old Salt Creek School. That was one of those periodic inspections, and they determined that the slab had delaminated. And so we had to close that bridge for a while and completely redeck it. They will give us cost-effective solutions. A lot of times it just happens. I mean, there was a hole that happened up on 73. No one knew it was coming. These are just unforeseen circumstances. So, I mean, you can definitely tell when some things are getting ready to happen, but then others, like in this case, I don't know. I'm assuming that it was definitely a result of the winter. I mean, this winter had more freeze-thaw cycles than normal. So water obviously got in there somehow, cracked the concrete, and then we had a problem.
Yeah, we've had a lot of debate about the winter, no question. I'm just curious, there is no liability, though.
Oh, there's always some liability, but, is there a recourse to go after that liability? I don't know that there is. I mean, they did everything that they were supposed to do.
Yeah, and I think it's important to look at the last 4 inspections, and they told us in the last one, hey, you guys need to get ready to replace this bridge. But you've got 5 to 10 more years. So this winter was a 10-year winter, I guess you'd want to call it.
Sure wasn't 100 years?
Yeah.
Just be glad the other 144 bridges aren't like this. We'd be in trouble if we had one of these a year.
Understood.
And when they do the inspections, there's also a punch list of repairs that they want you to do on these bridges also.
You think this?
Most on some of them, not all of them.
You think is this going to be a filigree pre-stressed concrete construction? You think, Mike, or?
Again, the design team will have to come up with that solution. If just from what my experience would tell me that is, I'm a proponent of concrete bridges because they don't rust. They also have other, it could be a steel bridge. We don't know. Regardless, we want it to be large enough to, in the other challenges that it is in the Stranger Creek floodplain. This is a tough spot because when we build a bridge, we build it for 50 to 100 years. So we want to make sure we put it in the ground, we put it in the ground right. We typically like to have a little more time so we can make sure that we got the right in there. There's some permitting things that we are going to have to probably accept in this because of its location in the Stranger Creek floodplain that might make it even more difficult. You know, if we had 5 years, we would absolutely want to figure out a way to make the opening of that bridge sufficient enough so that it would be less likely to overtop. The challenge with that is the criteria that the hydrologists used were all developed in the 1950s. So what used to be what they refer to as a 100-year or 1% storm is happening more frequently now than it used to when the data was generated. So we can design a bridge to pass a lot of water. Again, it becomes expensive and it also has regulatory challenges. Apologize. Barry White's going on today.
So,
Trees are trying to kill me.
so you need a motion from this board to proceed forward?
Or just a consensus that this is the direction we're moving. We will need a motion to approve it, but I'll let
I
the county
think
administrator-
since we've never done this process before, and it's not called out specifically in our purchasing policy, I would like the board to make a motion to allow Mr. Spickelmeyer to proceed with the construction management at-risk process.
Because we feel this would speed up the process of the construction.
Yes.
Yes.
You want to make that motion?
I do.
I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve Public Works to proceed with the, what type of? Construction management risk,
At risk.
at risk for Millwood Road Bridge, Stranger Creek Bridge.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting, I'll start with my right.
Aye.
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 Thank you for not coming forward and wanting to use a couple railroad cars.
There are a myriad of solutions, but I think we really want
That's
a 50 to 100 year system.
Yeah.
probably not one.
We had a commissioner that wanted us to use railroad cars for bridges. Previous commissioner, not present.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
I'll see you
Mike.
this afternoon.
Yep.
Yeah, all right.
The other item we had on the administrative business is the public comment policy. That was something came from last week's work session. The board had discussed the amount of time they allow for public comment. And there was, after the discussion, there was a decision to bring it back. So we just need the board to formalize the last week's discussion from moving from 3 minutes to 5 minutes.
I make a motion that we update the policy for public comment from 3 to 5 minutes, time limit for the public to speak.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on public comment? I'll start with my left. Voting.
Aye.
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 All right, motion carried. We ready for consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
Has commissioners had a chance to look at everything in the consent agenda? On the consent agenda, I should say. Any questions or concerns? Motion to approve the consent agenda by anyone?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Voting?
Aye.
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 Okay. Now I believe we're ready for the DECA fund request. Stay right there. State your name and your organization, other than DECA.
Hi, I'm Chloe Snow.
I'm Nick Hawley, and we're from Leavenworth High School DECA chapter.
So this year at our state competition, we had 11 grand champions, which means we have an automatic bid to the International Career Development Conference in Orlando, Florida. And every 4 years it's held here, and it's the most expensive to send us here.
So basically, through several state grants as well as Board of Education grants, combined with our individual fundraising through, I guess, like school activities, kind of like through our spirit box, our school store, our individual fundraising through like Yankee Candle, stuff like that. We've raised quite a bit of money, but we're still short about $1,500. And this $1,500 will be mainly used for the covering the one, I believe it's one night of the hotel. So we'll be there for approximately 6 nights. So it'll be covering one night of hotel as well as
our jackets that we have to compete.
Yeah, so the total cost as of right now is $19,084.28. And again, we're just short a couple thousand, and just, well, what we're requesting is $1,500 from the county commission.
And it's
Distributive
Education Clubs of America?
It used to mean that, but
What's it mean now?
it's just DECA now.
Yeah,
They just changed it to mean DECA.
So it can mean anything?
Yeah.
basically,
All
yeah.
right. I won't come up with anything. That, is that your district?
Yes.
Leavenworth High School?
Motion to approve $1,500 to be provided to the Leavenworth DECA for their hotel and jacket expenses.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the funding request?
How did you go about raising the 19,000? What are some of the things you did?
We sold pizza through the Little Caesars, and then we partner with Candle Queen Candles, and we sell candles. We have our spirit box, so all the students buy stuff, we stock it, and then people buy it, and then that money goes towards us.
Yeah, so it's like a vending machine, but for like school supplies and like snacks, stuff like that.
We sold beef jerky sticks.
And then each of us, everyone who is also going, I think
We
we
paid
paid
for
about
some of our way,
Yeah,
too.
yeah, we paid for. I want to say it was close to about $400 each, and then with a couple other people paying their entire way, which is about, for one person, it would be roughly $2,000.
And
So we
then-
had a couple people pay their way for that,
And then the Leavenworth Education Foundation gave us some money.
as well as a couple like state grants that were pre-approved from us qualifying last year as well.
And then our advisor took on some of the costs too to help offset it.
Okay. Did the school district donate any money?
Yes, so the school district would be paying for some of our hotel as well as our airfare to and from.
So if you place first or second, the school covered some of it. But then some of our students didn't, but still qualified, so then they have those costs. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the request? Then voting?
All right.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. We're actually about to leave.
Yeah, we fly out tonight.
Oh, have fun.
Oh, wow, this was quick.
So if we say go, does that change?
You need cash?
Cut now.
They're out of here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. We're ready for community corrections.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Megan. How are you?
Before you, I have 3 separate grants that would need to be approved and signed by the Board of County Commission. Just a small recap, my agency is completely funded by grants through the state of Kansas to operate our juvenile community corrections as well as our adult community corrections. The 3 grants before you are the full comprehensive plan for the juvenile community corrections. We also have the full adult comprehensive plan for community corrections as well as a behavioral health grant. For the juvenile community corrections and for the adult community corrections comprehensive grants, the state allots us a designated amount of money that we would prepare in a budget and grant to show our operating expenses and any projects that we would have for the year. And those allotment letters are also included in the many pages that I use to write the grants. But for the behavioral health grant, it is a freestanding grant where we can apply for however much funding we would ask or we would need. In the past, this grant has helped us pay for split staff salaries because we've had some change and modifications within our agency where we've lost some funding to cover salaries, but it's also covered programs that have allowed us to help pay for services for our felony offenders who've not been able to pay for treatment or pay for medication to be able to help remain themselves in compliance within the community and not be incarcerated. So these are the 3 separate grants that I would need the Board of County Commissioners to approve. The advisory boards for the respected grants have also approved these as well. I don't know which one you want to start with.
Yeah, there'll be 3 separate motions then?
Yes, please.
Okay. Any questions of Megan?
I have a couple.
All right.
Are you underneath the sheriff's department? Where's your authority structure?
The Board of County Commissioners, the county administrator, and then myself.
So you're not under the...
We are not, no.
Okay. What is the, you said advisory boards, how many are on your boards and how does that work?
Both, I have 2 separate advisory boards. For my juvenile community corrections, we are collaborated with the 1st Judicial District. So that's the full district. So we have board members from Atchison as well as Leavenworth County. On that advisory board, we have 12 board members. For the adult advisory board, that is strictly a Leavenworth County board, and there are 12 members on that one as well.
And are those members appointed by the Board of Commissioners, or are they appointed by the Judicial District, or how does that all work?
A combination of everything. We have statutory required board members, such as a representative from the courts. The administrative judge appoints those individuals. We also have individuals that are appointed by the designated Board of County Commissioners, both Atchison and Leavenworth, and we also have members that are appointed by the host cities, which is the largest city by population that the grant would cover for the county, which would be Leavenworth County in this case.
Okay. Now, how many individuals do you service typically?
For an average population for our adult, we serve around 213 offenders every year. For the average population for the juveniles, we serve anywhere between 25 and 30. The reason that I say 25 and 30 is that with the juvenile code for the justice system, all offenders that are actually incarcerated in the youth correctional facility still fall under that county's management. So even though we may have 10 kids in the youth correctional facility, we are still required to maintain and monitor their supervision while in the correctional facility. So they still remain under our numbers.
Okay. And have this funding method been has this been a long-term funding method? Like, has this been the whole time for a number of years?
Yes.
In effect?
Yes.
That we get the grants from the state?
For the adult budget, for the adult comprehensive plan, it is statutorily required to have a community corrections within that county or within that group of cluster of counties. That has been established since 1997. The juvenile community corrections used to fall under OJA and JJA until about 8 years ago when the Department of Corrections for the state of Kansas took over that funding. So for about the last 8 years, it's all been funded through the Department of Corrections. The behavioral health grant we first applied for it through the state, and it was offered in 2013. It is a federal grant that comes to the state of Kansas in about the tune of $3 million, and it's divided by what agencies apply for it and how much money throughout the state.
Okay. Thank you. That's a lot of information.
It's a lot.
So Megan, in total, it's a little over 800,000. So how does that, can you walk me through even the last couple of years? Is it a pretty similar number, slightly up, slightly down?
For the juvenile budget, this is actually my first year preparing that one. But comparable to last year, it's a 3 cents difference, 3 more cents this year than what we received last year.
Pretty close. We can probably round that.
Pretty close.
In the adult budget, it is actually about $9,100 less than what we were allotted for last year. But that is because the DUIs laws have changed a little bit. Statutorily, if anyone is convicted of a DUI, they're required to pay a certain administrative fund to what's called the DUI fund that is given to the state of Kansas. But because there's been some law changes in about the last 3 years, they were not prosecuting as many DUI cases as what there has been, because in the past, it was standalone. If you were arrested for one, it was for arrested for one. Well, now they don't look back past 10 years and they fall off your record. And
Well, hopefully Ubers have an impact.
and I would hope. But I do know that the DUI funding has been reduced across the state, so that's how we were reduced about $9,100 there.
Any more questions of Megan? I'll entertain a motion to approve the juvenile comp plan grant.
Motion to approve the Juvenile Comprehensive Plan Grant 2020.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the juvenile comp plan grant? Voting to my right?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, motion passed. All right, I'll entertain a motion for the adult comp plan grant.
Motion to approve the Adult Comprehensive Plan Grant for 2020.
Have a motion, have a second? Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 All right. And now I'll entertain a motion for the adult behavior health grant.
I'll make a motion, save Vicky, to approve the full year 2020 behavioral health grant application and budget for adult community corrections.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the adult behavior grant? Voting?
Aye.
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 Motion passed.
You gotta say which side.
Real quick, I really want to thank Megan for all the work, because I know how much time and effort has gone into Megan writing these grants, and she has several more on deck that she's going to be bringing to us here in the future, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of research, so thank you, Megan.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't trying to hit you with too many questions, but there's a lot
He's
of.
a new guy.
I'm the new guy.
He needs to go to some meetings, don't he?
Yeah. I've been to plenty of meetings.
Yeah, where are we at here?
You did good.
And Megan's going to be presenting to the Mental Health Task Force tomorrow, information, so appreciate that as well.
Megan,
Almost
what
like-
has your application success rate been?
Well, because the allotted amount, that's obviously guaranteed. But in the past, for the behavioral health, we have always received funds for the behavioral health. It just kind of gets, some years we've asked for $20,000 and we've received 10. Some years we've asked
Sure.
for $7,500 and received 5,000. It kind of depends on what the other needs within the jurisdictions are. And it's $3 million that's shared across the state. So last year we asked for $50,000 again to help cover salaries, and we received $41,000 for it. So this year we asked for $25,000. I know in the past they've really been making sure that people have their staff, so that's always kind of been a big push. Well, that doesn't apply to this year, so I'm anxious to see if we get probably about 10,000 at that. But we always ask for a little bit more in hopes that we get something.
Well, it seems like Vicky already caught on, but if you have a grant writer that has a 100% success rate, albeit maybe lesser funds, there might be additional opportunities.
Yes, very much so. And I'm hopeful to work with the one with the county so that we can utilize more grants. And I won't be writing, she can.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Megan.
Megan. Okay. All right. So are we ready for the spec building?
There is still one item.
Oh, that's right, we got that amendments to the personnel manual.
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of myself here.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
As we were going through the implementation for the new payroll software, we get to go through all of our processes and identify maybe some challenges or things that could be improved. And one of those was with the part-time employee accrual rates. The way the system is set up currently, with each payroll, we would have to evaluate each part-time employee to see where they would fall in the accrual system. And for just in vacation, there were 25 different accrual possibilities. There's 5 in sick leave and 5 in holidays. So that seems overly burdensome given that we only have about 20 part-time employees. What I'm asking is that the board, after discussing it with the HR director, I'm asking that the board consider approving 3 changes to the personnel manual that would move the part-time employees over to just a base accrual, so that you're either full-time or you're part-time, and there's one set of accruals for the full-time people, and then there's just one rate for the part-time employees, and that's the 3 changes that I'm asking for today.
Any questions, Mr. Lawfrey, on this? I think it's pretty basic. And no discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we accept the changes to the personnel manual as submitted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we're ready for spec building program. And who'll be presenting that? I'm assuming Mr. Jack.
Thank you. All right, if I...
Yeah, that's fine. Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that the mayor of Lansing's here and congratulate him on his new appointment. That's just another job you got to do. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you were chosen because of your experience.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. We wanted to give you just a few minute update for those of you who know a little bit about the spec building initiative that we've been talking about for the last year with the Leavenworth County Port Authority as well as the Leavenworth County Development Corporation. And I'll give just a little history for those of you who might not know. 20 years ago, when Gary Carlson was the executive director of LCDC's predecessor, LAD, Leavenworth Area Development, he started in conjunction with the cities and the county a spec building program which ultimately resulted in about a half a dozen or so 10, 12,000 square foot metal buildings in Lansing, Leavenworth, and Tonganoxie. Working with the Port Authority, these buildings cost about $225,000, $250,000 to $300,000 at the time, and were filled by companies like RFM Seating, Canaan Stoneworks. Midstar Lab is in what used to be the Right Choice Pharmacy building in Tonganoxie. Even the county annex was previously occupied by a private sector company and built by these initiatives developed by Gary Carlson. So, but as the price of construction has risen over the last 10, 15 years, it's made it harder for the Port Authority to continue to build industrial and commercial buildings. And so our focus has changed. And recently, as you can imagine, much of our focus revolves around marketing larger industrial parcels, the two that the Board of County Commission has invested a lot of money, as well as the city of Tonganoxie and Leavenworth. In the last year, though, we've had discussions about supplementing our marketing of the new business parks with a renewed building initiative, this time designed to incent the private sector to construct new buildings of 10 to 20,000 square feet, that range, which would be added to the tax rolls. And this would give us another tool to encourage development in any of our communities, whether or not you have one of the two large industrial parcels. And really the genesis of what can we do for all the communities, whether or not you have a large park or not, really came through the city of Lansing. And that's why Mayor Smith is here, City Administrator Tim Vandal, the Development Director Matthew Schmitz, and the Public Information Officer Ken Miller with the city, who are interested in other initiatives that could help their city. And when the discussions arose, we knew we needed something that would work, whether you're in Leavenworth, Lansing, Basehor, Tonganoxie, no matter where you were. So we've had a committee working on the program for the last year. Dan Gutschall, Brian Habian, who was in attendance this morning, Josh Hoppus, all bankers, Harlan Russell with GBA, he's the president of LCDC, your county administrator, Mark Lawfrey, each of the city managers and administrators also attended a variety of meetings, and led by Dan Gutschall. Dan's been out for the last 4 months, and I think next week he's back to work after 4 months of recuperating from knee surgery. So we have picked up the mantle and have taken it this far, and we're ready to roll it out. The concept is to take $200,000 from the Port Authority and invest it in a project in order to incentivize a developer and reduce the amount that the developer would have to borrow from a bank, and incentivize a project that may not otherwise occur. The $200,000 is a zero-interest loan which will be paid back by the developer after the bank loan is paid off, and that could be 10, 15, 20 years depending upon the length of the loan. Now, we thought we might be doing our first project in the Lansing Business Park, but fortune intervened, and all but a couple of parcels in the business park have been sold, and this is after about 12 or 13 years of no activity in that very small business park. As you know, the Leavenworth Co-op bought 3 parcels to relocate there. Duck's Carpet Cleaning bought a parcel, and so sometimes lightning strikes, and so our focus turned to other properties. And the property that we were looking at with the developer is a retail commercial property at 400 North Main that's been sitting there with a modest building, but not generating the kind of tax revenue it could. The new building will be 11,500 square feet. It will accommodate 6 tenants upstairs and 6 below. So if you're familiar with the property, there's a building on it, a dramatic drop-off, and the building will have 6 units on top, and then around the back there'll be 3 others. There'll be the plan is for the developer to charge a little more for those with a front on K7 on Main Street, and a little cheaper in the back. This could be retail, it could be commercial, could be a variety of different businesses. But we do know that the value of the property right now is $372,620, and this initiative should improve that property to close to $1.5 million. It'll be $1,455,000 is the estimate of the investment that the developer will be making. So the size of the first project allows for the Port Authority to invest the full $200,000 in the project. And the Port Authority has sufficient resources to perhaps incent 1 or 2 additional after this initial one. However, the thought was not to do 2 and call it a day, but to figure out some way that we can keep this ongoing after we've done this first one. So we're proposing that we partner with the county and the city to invest in the program in the next budget cycle at the rate the city and the county taxing authorities will benefit from increased tax revenue. If we can do that, we can do additional buildings. Also, any monies accrued when selling lots in the existing Gary Carlson and Urban Hess parks, which are owned by the Port Authority, could be used to put back into the program, as would savings beginning in 2021 after our last payment in 2020 from the 10-year incentive that the Port Authority, the City of Leavenworth, and the county are putting in $50,000 annually to incent the VA CPAC project. And we just got a bill, I think, that Mark, you probably just got one for the 9th payment of the 10 payment incentive for the VA CPAC. So once that's satisfied, then that will be additional monies that could go into this program. The Lansing City Council has already approved the building plans for the project at 400 North Main. The developer has run pro formas with and without the incentive and is committed to only doing the project but for the incentive. And that's really the intent of the program, is not to reward a developer, but to encourage a developer who is on the fence about investing money. On Friday, the LCDC Executive Committee will be considering final approval of the project, which is a joint Port Authority and LCDC project. Port Authority has agreed to transfer money to LCDC to administer the program, and LCDC will make that final determination on Friday, and that any indication is likely, and we have Brian Habian here who could speak to that, but he is one of 5 on our executive committee. So I'm not asking for any commitment of dollars today. We just wanted to give you an update on the initiative and give you a heads up that we would be making a case in next year's budget request for a contribution to the program. This is a program that could potentially benefit each of the communities, no matter the size and the number of business areas in those communities. And I've had preliminary discussions with businesses in Basel and Tonganoxie, in addition to this first one in Lansing. So the program is intended to give us another a tool in our economic efforts, in addition to our work to recruit businesses to the 2 larger parks and the effort and assistance we give through our business retention and expansion program to existing businesses. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure we'll be back to you all. I think you have this summary about the program, and I've inundated Mark with spreadsheets and other information that at some point in the future we can get into more detail.
Okay. Steve, is there anything, you said as soon as the bank loan is paid off, they start paying back the $200,000. Is there anything to keep the business from refinancing right before they get the thing paid off and then have a payment on it?
If anything happens like that, if the building were to sell during this period, then that $200,000 would have to be paid back. So it's at that point it would be paid back. If it happens in the 5th year or the 7th year, a lot quicker than waiting until.
But what if they were just refinancing it to start all over again?
Well, my banker.
The theory is if they do actually refinance, any changing of the terms of the note with the bank automatically elevates that $200,000 to must be paid.
Yep.
That's in the official agreement with the bank and the developer.
Okay. But what if the refinance is because they're struggling making the payments? And
That is the downside from the Port Authority and the LCDC side. There always is risk when you put money into a project. But if it would be at that point, the first mortgagee is probably not going to renew the loan. They're probably going to foreclose to get the building back, and we would still have a lien position there.
That was actually my question. You know, I think this is a great example, and a lot of creativity I know went into this, because there is a shortage of inventory. If anybody has looked, there's not a lot of options as you guys have those meetings. So the developer in this project is obviously very experienced and successful. So in my opinion, there's far less risk. My question was for someone that doesn't have that experience or track record, how is the LCDC or Port Authority protecting ourselves? I realize that delayed payback is always a risk, but there is a lien that's put against the property and project, so, okay.
And we'll have a committee that will, I believe, change each time each project comes in. It could be different faces, but with some financial expertise, because there'll be a judgment about whether we want to enter into an agreement with the next developer who comes along.
I have a question. What do you anticipate the pool of money that you're going to request from the county would be?
Well, and we have a spreadsheet. What we've done is we've taken the 200,000, figured out the millage that comes into the county, and of a 200,000 investment, and the millage that comes into the city. And it's, I can tell you, it's slightly over 50,000 from the county, and about 56,000, I believe, from the city. So those would be the two amounts that in next year we would be, well, here in the next few weeks, we would be asking both of those taxing authorities, anticipating an investment in the program. Not specifically this project, because the project is the 200,000 that the Port Authority has control of now, but the program to do the next one, and then the next one after.
And that would be in addition to the 250-some thousand that we give, it would be on top of that budgeted amount?
Yes, well, or of the...
Between the Port Authority and the LCDC?
Right, of our typical LCDC request and the typical request of Port Authority funding.
So, just looking at this, I mean, I'm obviously trying to understand this. It looks to me like we're basically guaranteeing the bank, so that they then will be incentivized to go ahead and offer these loans by we're protecting them from their loss. Is that basically how it works?
I'd let the banker talk about bank position. From my perspective, the developer, who has done nothing with this property for 10 years and won't do, is being incented to enter into an agreement with a bank to borrow money and invest.
But we're helping the bank we're making you more comfortable as a banker to make these loans. Is that the sort of the way I understand it?
Anytime that a loan is made, the bank has to have a certain amount of comfort with the
Right.
prospective applicant. There are loans made every day that are 100% of the cost, and there are loans that are made with having the developer put more money into the project. This position would be a junior position anyway. The bank's still going to have a first lien position, and part of the program is the bank has to agree to make the loan before this program ever kicks in. So they either have to be in on the deal from day one, or they're out. And so the spec building committee is not even going to approve a program if they don't have a bank that's willing to do the program with them.
Okay.
So
Now,
the county's not really guaranteeing anything on this particular loan, or this particular request.
Okay.
There's no guarantee one way or the other.
So on this particular development, I assume that if this program didn't exist, this particular developer has the wherewithal to get the financing to do it.
Good. And then the issue is a judgment on running pro forma, whether it's in his interest to do that.
Okay. And is he saying that if he didn't have this, he probably wouldn't proceed? Is that the?
Yes.
Okay. And typically this will be used for building office space?
That's a great question. Typically, and the intent is, the primary focus is industrial.
Light industrial or?
Light industrial. Not unlike the buildings that we were building 15, 20 years ago, the Midstar Labs and the Canaan Stonework kind of buildings. And that's where the focus was originally, as a building like that in a spec building in the Lansing Business Park on one of the small 1.5, 2 acre parcels. But that opportunity didn't arise, and then the developer who owns that business park said, what about this? So we didn't want to limit it to industrial, but certainly industrial, commercial, retail in that order.
Okay, and this is just a macro question. Those are all micro questions. Macro, we want to get good jobs that pay well in our community. And that's obviously what the Port Authority and LCDC, in your judgment, are we going to be able to see some success? Is this going to help us to achieve that goal? I mean, do you see any, I mean, is this just like we're building a foundation, or is this, if we do this, this will result in a direct result?
Well, one of the reasons why the developer hasn't pulled the trigger on the property is because he doesn't have anybody lined up to go in, so it's a little hard to anticipate what kind of jobs will be at this specific site. But as Commissioner Shemke pointed out, we don't have inventory, and until a year ago, we didn't have any large industrial land. We didn't have any parcels. I didn't have any product. So it's been a tough sell to get the development community, either internally or externally, to come in and invest money here. And so we have answered one of the questions about the land with the 2 new industrial parks, and now this is a way to get more buildings vertical and allow for the if Right Choice Pharmacy building hadn't been built in Tonganoxie, Midstar Lab wouldn't be there, and those wages are very good. So it's about inventory and product.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
And if there wouldn't have been a grocery store in Basher, we wouldn't have an Orsolans.
Steve, just one last question. I just wanted to be clear. The assessed value that you have on the taxes, I assume that's that's fully assessed, meaning, you know, this type of project, I assume, qualifies for other, you know, tax incentives. So some of that might be delayed, right?
Right. And that's another great question. And when we share, and Mark and I have talked about the payback, typical payback is probably going to be 5 to 6 years. The Neighborhood Revitalization Act is in that, covers that area of Lansing, and so that will be laid on there, which will delay that payback to the county and to the city. And so this doesn't preclude the city of doing any additional incentives, and really the 2 incentives that allow the developer to do that are the neighborhood revitalization, property tax abatement, which starts pretty aggressively and then goes down to 0 after time, and then this investment in the project, the $200,000.
Yeah, I think when you guys come to put a more formal proposal in front of the commission, I think it'd be good just to walk through that, assuming that in some of these areas there's probably programs that might lessen that, you know, property tax impact early. The return is still there. There's no question, just maybe a longer cycle, right?
Right, yeah.
This is pretty much just informational today. I mean, Port Authority can obviously do whatever they want with their fund, with their money. It's just that there'll be a budget enhancement coming before us. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
We do have the overall issue of economic development. It's going to be in one of our work sessions upcoming, correct?
I think what we identified was that the discussion on an economic development policy for the county-wide economic development policy. I think that's what's on our next, not next, but in a future work session. I don't know that we were going to discuss economic development in particular, but that would be a good time to do it. And again, it won't be our next work session, but it'll be a future one here pretty quick.
Steve, you said we had 2 payments left, VA?
Yes.
This year and next year.
Yeah, this year, this June, and then the following June.
Okay, and then they're leaving when? Is that the one that's leaving?
No.
No,
Oh.
that's CMOP.
Let's see, Mom, okay.
CPAC
All right.
is still here, and
Okay, all right.
Is that something we need to have our federal legislator help us keep?
It's
And
too
we've
late.
tried.
well, the CMOP, we have reached out, and Senator Moran, and we have had many discussions in their staff, and that's a longer conversation, but basically, we've been in touch with the VA about the CMOP out at Gary Carlson, 200-plus jobs, pharmacist, for 4 years or so, about giving them land to keep them when they wanted to build their own building. And then after 4 years, they decided to change course, and they only wanted an existing 100,000 square foot building, which we didn't have. So we were sort of out of it, and we weren't very happy about that, and those are the discussions. That's not the, we haven't heard anything like that they're dissatisfied at the VA CPAC, the Consolidated Patient Account Center on the VA campus. And so I think it's likely to stay for a long time.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions, Mr. Jack? I mean, this is going forward, correct? This project?
Talk to me at 9 o'clock Friday, but
Okay.
they're going to consider, every indication is that the executive committee will be approving it Friday morning.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. I had one other thing on the agenda that, it's not on the agenda, but I wanted to have Mr. Joseph come up and just give you a brief update on the comp plan, where they're at with that. They're getting close to needing to move to the next step, and I wanted, before that happened, I wanted him to come in and give you all an update.
Thanks, guys, for coming
Bye, guys.
today.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Hey, Jeff.
I just wanted to give you an update on the process that we are going through right now. We are getting ready to do the press release, which will happen in the next few weeks. So I just wanted to get an approval from you all, just to begin the process, and also tell you about some of the meetings that we have scheduled already. So May 23rd is the first meeting. It'll be with the stakeholders. So right now, with the press release going out, hopefully we'll have a lot of volunteers to participate in the process. And then we have several meetings that are scheduled after that. I don't know if you had a chance to go through the press release and also the memorandum. It's basically, all the meetings are already scheduled, so we're excited to go forward with that.
Okay.
If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'm sure we will once we get started. But right now, this is pretty much what the previous board all wanted. I'm pretty sure these new commissioners are all on board with this.
I wanted to make sure that this looked to be in line with what you were anticipating before it came out in a press release.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys have any other questions? I mean,
I don't.
kind of easier to play the game when you know the rules and have a playbook, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, I don't have any questions. I think this is what we thought we were asking for, yeah.
Thanks for getting this
But-
moving along.
Okay, that's all we needed. We don't need
Oh,
a formal
okay.
motion or anything. If there was an objection, I wanted to take care of it now versus after a press release.
Oh.
came out.
No, we need to get the press release out there.
Okay.
All
That's
right,
what these
all right.
people
Well, thanks for
want.
coming up.
Thank you.
I shouldn't say coming up, coming across the hall. It
Yeah.
used to be downstairs.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. You have anything else, Mr. Lawfrey?
No, sir.
Eisenhower. Any update?
Well, Commissioners, I did attend a meeting with the Board of Directors of Rural Water District Number 8 with respect to the proposal of the county. The county would undertake to relocate the service line of Rural Water District Number 8 that runs along and wouldn't be necessitated to have movement on in the Eisenhower project. The proposal was that the county would relocate the line within the county right-of-way as established and already acquired, and that in the event that needed to be moved in the future, the county would bear that cost. Basically a turnkey operation. We would work with their engineer, allow their inspection, work with them on any contemplated future plans. If they wanted to upgrade the size of their line, facilitate that. The initial response was that they would prefer to have their own private easements past the easements already acquired for the Eisenhower project, and in essence that where the county would need to relocate the line from the current location in private easements, the county would bear the cost to have that relocated to yet another private easement. That is a complicating factor in two respects. It substantially impacts the potential budget for the project, and just as importantly, potentially impacts the scheduling of the project. The proposal of the county was based partly upon our experience with 147th Street and East McIntyre, in which substantial and costly delays have been encountered due to the lack of relocation by a water district, where they requested more or less the same scenario, that they obtain additional private easements and that they schedule and be responsible for the relocation of the line. And that relocation did not occur on time or within the estimated time, causing delays in the county contractor's schedule. So that's where we currently stand. I'm not stating or saying or presupposing that the door is closed on that discussion, but that is the current status.
Well, would it be better just to do it in two phases and bid, say, 20th Street to 155th Street while we're working out the utility relocation on the other part?
Commissioners, there is the option to re-engineer the project, possibly to minimize the relocation of the line. I'm not certain if it can be fully eliminated, and the project could, of course, be broken into components to allow for at least the initiation and partial completion of the project without delay. And those are certainly options that I am confident, in fact, know that your county administrator is exploring with your public works director and the engineering team. So those options are always on the table. Right now, I would term the situation as being fluid and not referencing water.
Who's the primary contact or go-between, for lack of a better term, with the utility company?
Well, the Rural Water District has retained an engineer who, from my observation, appears to be, for want of a better term, in the driver's seat, and is, quite frankly, very much an advocate for an additional private easement with the Rural Water District and his engineering firm being responsible and in control of the relocation. He has contacted me and offered to meet with me to continue that discussion. I have not responded, as I don't feel it's appropriate. My task was to convey the proposal of the county to the Rural Water District and relay the response. That contact could be used. It is an elected body, though, however, Commissioner.
Right.
And these citizens.
They have a board and a chairman.
There is a
Engineers
board.
acting on their behalf.
Ostensibly.
So, I mean, could we provide even an open invite?
Yes.
To come and
Sure.
speak with the board?
Absolutely. I am always an advocate of open discussions, and this commission could examine its options and then determine whether it would be productive to have a joint meeting or an additional meeting with a representative of the commission to the Rural Water District or vice versa. My suggestion might be to fully examine your options and then determine which course of action to take. In discussing this matter with Mr. Spickelmeyer and your county administrator, it's been impressed upon me that this is a time-sensitive issue, and it's being conducted as such.
We saw it blow up in our face on McIntyre, so I'd like to avoid.
no, 147th was a bigger
Well,
explosion.
there you go.
True.
Good- Better.
There was
points.
change orders and
Sure.
delays and.
Well, it's one of the things that one of the reasons why we reached out to them and offered that we just included as part of our project using their specifications was that then our contractor could get out there and get started on the project without having to wait until the water line is completely moved. With them doing their own project, we will not bid the project until all utilities are moved because of 147th, McIntyre, some other issues that we've ran into. So that will, regardless, will delay the project somewhat. We don't know because it's their timeline, not ours at this point. They kind of drive that car. As far as doing the project in phases to get half of it started, there's potential that we could do that. Obviously, it adds cost to the project because you get a second mobilization. There's no guarantee that the contractor who did the first part of the first phase will get the second phase, so they're not going to be maybe as competitive on the bids. So we're working forward. We've notified the utilities. They need to get back to us on when they're going to be moved. So the ball is kind of in their court. We did, Mr. Van Paris did attend their board meeting, put forth the offer, and they, at this time, have rejected that offer and are going to interject their own plan of action.
If I assume, like most water districts, they meet once a month.
Monthly.
Right.
And Commissioner,
Which is just fantastic for speed.
although it requires me extensive and timely travel to attend their meetings, approximately 2 to 3 minutes,
If you ran.
I can certainly continue to attend their meetings, and I'm available and willing to convey any message to them or relay any message back to you.
What speeds it up a little bit, though, is water districts don't have to go out for bid on projects. Thought I'd throw that in there.
Depends on which one, right?
Right.
Well, none of them have to go out for bid on their
Sure.
projects, and
By state statute.
yeah, but I don't know how they intend to handle this project.
And Commissioner Shimke and Commissioners, that was another advantage the county had it looked at, is by going through, having the county responsible for the relocation, it would ensure that it was publicly bid and the bid went to the lowest and best bidder. So that was an added advantage to the public. We believe through past experience that those savings are not inconsequential.
Agreed.
Well, like I said, if it's gonna keep kicking it down the road, I'd just soon do the first phase from 20th Street to 155th and get that, at least get that going while we're working to get that utility moved.
I mean, you basically just take the specs and just tear it. It's like you remove the
Well, I don't
back
think
half
there's
of
any
the specs,
conflicts
right?
in the first phase, correct? Everything's out of the way?
I can't speak to that. I would have to have the engineering firm that's actually doing the design work evaluate that.
Utility relocation is underway.
I do believe there was one intersection there where there was a different,
I don't think.
the Leavenworth Water was also out there, so.
Right, but I think they're actively doing.
They're
something.
moving theirs.
Right.
The other utilities are in the process of moving.
Right.
So I don't know if they're completed yet or not.
Who is the engineering firm?
Our engineering firm is Wilson and Company on that project.
Doug, everybody on not next week, but the following week, I have a conflict on the afternoon on the 8th. I wondered if we could move our work session to the 7th, 9 o'clock in the morning. Does that work?
7th would be the Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it.
That work for you, Chad?
Yeah.
No problem.
All right.
I'll be here.
I appreciate it. A fellow broke his arm and I have to go to another meeting.
Rather that than you break your arm, so.
That's right.
I'm good with that, so if we put that.
Mark, was there something that I told you to remind me to bring up? Okay, then, good enough.
I typically write those down.
Okay, that's what I knew that. That's why I was asking.
You forgot to.
It's like, because I can't
All
find
right.
my sticky.
And I'd say, if we don't have anything else, we're adjourned.